his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
All right, welcome to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also joined by our in-studio audience of one, Norm MacArthur. How you doing there, Norm?
Doing pretty good. Good morning, Mr. Hare.
Welcome to the broadcast. And
Thank
of course,
you, sir.
We have our citizen of the 21st century. We know that he's an actual citizen because he knows how to operate all of these systems that allow us to live stream these programs and make it available to you. Welcome, Willie H., our engineer.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare calling y'all, 716. About to put my number, 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
And a special shout out to James Braun, our producer. He's still, recovering, and we hope that he'll be back with us as soon as possible. But we just want to shout out, let everybody know that we still have him in our thoughts and our prayers. Now, those aren't the same thoughts and prayers that we use for shootings.
Uh-oh.
Okay, shootings require a administrative and legislative remedy. We're not talking about that. We're talking about thoughts and prayers for people that are sick. That's what your thoughts and prayers are for. And whatever we can do to help people to get better, we want to provide that assistance for people. I bring us back to that subject because we're back in the same space again. The governor of Texas, the governor of Florida, these. I don't even have words to describe who these people are, but they respond to these horrible shootings with statements like, "Oh, our thoughts and prayers are with, you folks." But when we ask, when we didn't have assault weapons, when they were illegal in this country, we had hardly any mass shootings during that time period. Between 1994 and 2004, we had very few mass shootings, because we didn't have access to assault weapons, to AR-15s. Then you voted for people like the second George Bush, and your 9/11 response was, "Oh, I know what we can do to respond to 9/11. We'll all get AR-15s." And so we went from maybe 50 or 60 million people owning AR-15s to 400. Well, actually, we have 410 million AR-15s in the possession of the 310 million Americans in this country. And in fact, it's even worse than that. Those 410 assault weapons, only 3 out of 10 American households have an assault weapon in it. In fact, I'm wrong about that. Only 3 out of 10 American households have a gun owner in it.
Okay, gotcha.
4 out of American households have guns in the household. But all of the adults in the household are not gun owners. There's maybe 1 or 2 people in the household that own multiple guns, and so that's why that number works out that way. But what it boils down to is 7 out of 10 people are making policy. 3 out of 10 people are making policy for 7 out of 10 people.
Wow.
Seems to me like there's something undemocratic about that. Maybe it's just because I learned how to count. It's just me. But I just wanted to throw that thought out there. We'll talk more about this because these things kind of work together. You have rules. We have this thing, called laws. You all heard of that, right?
Yeah, we usually get put in jail for those people.
Yeah, it's another 4-letter word. And those 4-letter words usually have subtle meanings, or maybe even not so subtle meanings and whatnot. I went to an article written by Matthew Chapman, writing for a website called The Raw Story, and he was reporting on this incident. I was talking to Norma about this a little while ago, about this incident in which the Georgia election, the November 20th election that took place, the November 3rd election that took place in 2020. In that election, Georgia, the vote in Georgia went to Joe Biden by almost 12,000 votes. Joe Biden won the election in Georgia.
Okay.
As a result of that, the Electoral College votes, I think there are 16 Electoral College votes for the state of Georgia. All of those Electoral College votes went to the winner in Georgia. So they would have all gone to Joe Biden. The way the system is set up, when you run for president, in each state, you indicate a list of people who will vote the Electoral College votes for your state if you win, right? So if the Republicans won, they would have a slate of electors, and those electors would go to Washington, and they would cast the vote for Trump. If he had won, they would have cast a vote for the Electoral College for Trump. If Joe Biden won, then his slate of electors would cast the votes for Georgia for Joe Biden. That makes sense, right? That's how the system is set up.
Yeah, that makes sense to us. Yeah. But
see, the Republicans have a new deal. I was trying to explain this to Norman. He was telling me that my head is screwing on and off. You're trying to make me believe something that don't make any sense, right? Well, let me see if I can make this make sense. The Republican Party is asserting in Georgia that they dispute the outcome of the Georgia election. Since they dispute the outcome of the Georgia election, and not based on any evidence, because before we got to this point, there were 3 audits of the election in Georgia, all of which said the same thing, within 80 to 100 votes, that Joe Biden won the election in Georgia, period. So there's no dispute there. But the Republicans are saying that, well, in our mind, we feel that it's still disputed because we feel there was electoral misconduct, that, Democrats cheated. We say, well, give me some examples. I don't have any examples. Well, explain to me why you think the Democrats cheated. We know they cheated because they said Joe Biden won. By definition, that means they had to have cheated because Trump had to have won because this is a conservative state, and they would always have voted for Donald Trump. So they're saying on the basis of their feeling that the election was done improperly,
Right.
and that Trump should have won. So based on that feeling, they're saying that the election is in dispute. And because they're saying the election was in dispute, they felt that they should be able to put together an alternate state, a slate of electors for Georgia, and have them present their votes to the joint session of Congress, which would have meant that Georgia's electoral college votes would have been sent in for Donald Trump. Now, that would have meant that you would have had an election in Georgia in which the Democrat won the election. The election was certified 3 different times, audited 3 different times, and proven that Joe Biden won the election by a significant number, or a significant amount. And you actually took the electoral college votes from Joe Biden and gave them to Donald Trump. But the Republicans feel like, well, we're not doing anything illegal. We feel the election was in dispute. And so, because they felt the election was in dispute, they felt it was okay for them to put together an alternate slate of electors. So David Schaefer is the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. He claims that his plot to stand as now he actually became a elector himself. So, I mean, we're not talking about somebody talking about something that somebody else did. We're talking about what David Schaefer himself did, and he's the chair of the Republican Party.
Mr. Hare, when you say elector, what do you exactly mean, elector?
So in our country, this gets real curious. In our country, when you vote for the president, you are actually not voting for the president. You're voting for the Electoral College delegate.
Oh, Electoral College.
Right. So let's say your state has 16 Electoral College votes, right? You would put together a slate. If you're an independent party person, you put together an independent party slate. If you're a Democrat, you put together a Democratic slate. If you're a Republican, you put together a Republican slate. And if you win, then your slate, those names of people who actually become the delegates to the Electoral College, are submitted to the Electoral College. It's generally done around the 16th of December following a November election. So that's what occurred. What the Republicans were going to do is submit an alternate slate of electors for that December 16th meeting. And then you would have had 2 different slates of electors show up for the Electoral College meeting.
Wow.
And you can imagine what kind of confusion that was going to cause. Well, the Republicans had an answer for that. The Republicans were going to say, well, if that occurred and you all didn't accept what we said, that there was some confusion, and now there's confusion really going on in the election, we're going to set aside the popular vote in the election, and we're going to go to the state legislature and have the state legislatures, the state assembly and the state senate, will have them vote. And whatever the result is of that vote, that's how we will get the votes cast for Georgia. But of course, the state legislature in the Senate and the state legislature in the Assembly are both majority dominated by Republicans. So the Republicans would basically take the vote away from the population of people in Georgia and have the vote go to the 500 or 600 people that make up the state assembly and the state senate in Georgia, and they would wind up voting for Georgia, and that would be Georgia's participation in democracy. Yeah, that I know that doesn't make sense, but that's what they attempted to do. Right. So the thing that got me on this is Schaefer's attorneys said that their client was relying on repeated and detailed advice of legal counsel when they organized a group of contingent electors from Georgia and served as one of the electors himself. My question is, well, who hired these lawyers? Did these lawyers work for Donald Trump? Do these lawyers work for the Georgia Republican Party? Do these lawyers work for the Georgia State Department? Do they work for the Georgia Board of Elections? Who hired these attorneys? Who is it that said that it was legal for you to set aside the votes of the citizens of Georgia and replace the votes with your little team of electors and have the state legislature decide who the vote should go to for the state of Georgia? Who came up with that? What made that make any sense, right? But this is the behavior that is going on in this country right now. In every instance, when you allow the Republicans to have the majority in a state Senate, a state assembly, and also have the governorship of that state, you will see massive misconduct going on. They change election laws in ways, for example, in Florida, they had an election law that said that if you were an ex-felon, you did your time, you're back in the community, unless your crime involved murder or some sort of sex offense, rape or something like that, you would be able to recover your right to vote. Now, this happened when Ron DeSantis was governor. This law was passed while he was governor, but he didn't like the law. So he had another law passed that said, well, yeah, you could do that, but only after you pay all of the costs that the state incurred when they had to try you in the first place for your crime. So if the state says, well, it costs $20,000 to try this fool, you got to put $20,000 on the table and give that to the state in order for you to be able to vote.
The individual has to pay that.
Right. So how many individuals you think are going to be able to do that, right? I mean, usually if you have been convicted of a felony and you've been in jail for a few years, if not more, the ability that you would have of coming up with $20,000 is like slim and very, very few and none, right? But this is what Ron DeSantis did. He also then went out and what they said that the people who would determine whether or not you were eligible to vote were the people that work for the Board of Elections in your county. They would, you'd submit your application to them. They'd look at your application, look at all of your credentialing that makes you eligible to vote, and they would say yes or no, you're eligible to vote. So Ron DeSantis changed that. He said, no, that's not right. The Board of Elections, who we hire to administer elections, who we hire to administer the registration of people to vote, who we hire to determine whether or not people are eligible to vote. No, that's not the case now. Under Ron DeSantis, it says that you as the individual have to prove yourself that you are eligible to vote. So let's suppose that you put up information where you're, like for me, when I was in grammar school, my grammar school records referred to me as Nathan Hare. Mm-hmm. But that's not really my legal name. My legal name is Leon Nathan Hare.
Leon is in the house, y'all.
Right. So Leon is my father. Leon is my father's name.
Wow.
But my mother never called me by my father's name.
Yeah.
So when I registered for school, she said his name is Nathan. Yeah. Nathan Hare.
Sounds like my ex-wife.
And nobody questioned it. I mean, nobody said, well, show me the birth certificate or something. Right. Whatever it was, they didn't question it. And so I was 14. I was a junior in high school when I learned that my name was Leon, right?
Wow.
Because I was in an assembly, and whatever, it's another story.
Wow.
But my point is that if my school record was used as my ID for me to register to vote, somebody could come back later on and say, well, that's illegitimate. He's not Nathan Hare. He's really Leon Nathan Hare. So you can't use that document, to prove that he's who he is, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that can go on. But that's supposed to be done by your Board of Elections. What Ron DeSantis did is had that change so that that had to be done by you. And when I say done by you, it means that if you registered to vote and they accepted your registration and it turned out that there was a flaw in your eligibility, that flaw is on you. You're the one that has to prove that that was not a flaw in your registration. Go ahead.
Let's see, I got a couple comments. The first one is, number one, it seems unconstitutional from the beginning for Ron DeSantis to say that if you are someone that's incarcerated and you get out, I think even if you are incarcerated, why should that take away your right to vote?
Why? Because the 15th Amendment says that you cannot deny a person the right to vote on the basis of race, color, creed, or country of origin.
Yes.
Are you basing it on that?
I'm basing it on
the Constitution?
Yes, sir.
Are you crazy? What is the matter with you?
I believe
laws.
Just like you say,
follow laws.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, with that being said, and then the censorship of him stopping. See, when you look at who's basically incarcerated, the majority of the people that are incarcerated.
And this is what what you're just talking about now is what Ron DeSantis did.
Mm-hmm.
He actually went and looked up, or had his staff look up 20 people that had registered to vote who were convicted persons, had served their time.
Yeah.
And they operated based on what they were told by advocate organizations. You're able to vote now. So they went to a register to vote. They didn't lie. They said, yep, I was convicted of killing a person. I was convicted of, committing a rape or whatever. I served my time and am I eligible to vote? And they were given voter registration cards, which means that the Board of Elections in that county verified or validated this person's registration. What Ron DeSantis said is that, well, because this person was convicted of a sex crime or convicted of a murder, they were not eligible for this reinstatement of the right to vote. And that responsibility is on the individual to tell, which the individual did. They told the Board of Elections that they had, this flaw in their background, that they had, these convictions in their background. But the Board of Elections gave them a voter registration card anyway.
Right.
So Ron DeSantis says, well, that's not on the Board of Elections, that's on you. How could it possibly be on you when you did everything you could do? You told them everything they asked of you to say. You said it. You said it exactly the way that they said you're supposed to say it. You didn't hide it. And they gave you the voter registration card. Well, of course you went to vote. Well, why would you not think that it was okay for you to vote? Ron DeSantis had these 20 people picked up. They did a big, news thing and whatnot, had these people picked up. Now, it turns out that all these people have been released now, and but they've been released, but some of these people lost their jobs because they were pulled off the street.
The scrutiny of what's been going
Well,
on.
your employer says, I need you to work every day. I can't wait for you to get out of jail.
Do you have, out of the 20 people that they picked, do you have an idea of how many people were black?
If I'm not mistaken, all but 2 of the people of the 20 were black.
See, when you formulate he's basically breaking it down,
right?
And you look at the amount of black people that are incarcerated, you're knocking out a whole.
And remember what he's really doing, because he knew that these guys were not gonna. This election law violation was not going to stand for them because they didn't hide anything. They told the Board of Elections everything that they were supposed to tell them. It's the Board of Elections that chose to give them a voter registration card and registered them to vote. But what Ron DeSantis was really counting on is that anybody who had a criminal record of any kind in Florida, particularly a black person, would be afraid to apply for a voter registration because they would think, when I do this, they may make something up on me.
Correct.
There's no telling what they might do. They may have a noose, with my name on it, and so on, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what he wanted to do. The idea that the Republicans have been engaged in is how to intimidate people from even trying to vote, even making themselves able to vote, because people are afraid that something is going to get done to them if they made themselves available to this process.
That right there is, it just says more and more to me how important it is to vote. You got to get people like this out of office because he's doing everything possible.
And you got to be courageous.
Yeah.
Meaning that, yes, there's a possibility that they will do something bad to you because that's who these people are. They're going to do criminal things. They're going to use the system of democracy, the procedures of democracy. They're going to use this to do undemocratic things to you. We know that that's going to occur, but you have to push through that anyway so that you can vote. And then you got to have a litmus test on who you vote for. Anybody that would deny you the ability to teach your own history in your schools, you can't vote for that person.
Yeah.
Anybody who will try to eliminate the ability of people to vote, you're not going to vote for that person.
Stop woke.
Right. That's Ron DeSantis.
Hey, that's his.
Right, his Stop Woke campaign.
Stop Woke act.
Anybody that even talks like that, even if you don't know what woke means, which most people don't worry about that. The fact that he said that should be a reason for you not to vote, for him, because he does not have your interests at heart. Right. So, I mean, if you're a woman and you feel, well, even if you're a man, if you feel, which I feel as a man, that you have the right to govern your body yourself.
Yes, sir.
If somebody came to me and started saying to me, Nate, I know you've been in control of your body for the last 70-something years, but I got some plans, for your body. You don't get to have any plans for my body, right? I mean, unless you want to leave this planet. You don't get any plans on my body. So I would support a woman who says that she insists that she has the right to be the one to decide what she does with her body. Mm-hmm. I got to stand with her. Mm-hmm. So if you feel the same way, you have to look at people's backgrounds and their resumes. Anybody who is in opposition to a woman being able to decide for herself what to do with her body, it seems to me that you would vote against that person. If you want to have the kind of country that you say you want to have, where people have the freedom that you say you want people to be able to feel and express and live in, then you got to make decisions that are not about whether or not somebody says they're going to cut the budget by X number of $1 billion. You got to make your electoral decisions about who you're going to support based on who's going to be with you in creating the kind of country environment, the cultural environment in this country that you want to live in. If you do that, we can work the other things out.
I understand that to the fullest level, but this stuff doesn't come out until after these people get in office. I think sometimes it's hard to discern or decipher what these people are really all about until you really get them in office, and then you really find out who they really are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about Kristen Sinema, the senator from Arizona, and that she ran as a Democrat. She's been a Democrat for the past six or 8 years.
Yeah.
And but then she just woke up, a couple months ago and said, sometimes I feel like a lump, sometimes I don't. Mounds, I feel like a nut rather. Right. So she goes through the Mounds commercial thing, and changes from one thing to another. You as the person who voted for her as a Democrat, how do you feel when she wakes up one morning and says she feels like a nut?
She just did a switcheroo. Just
sometimes
woke up one day and did a turnaround.
Sometimes she feels like a nut, and sometimes she don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so she didn't feel like a nut today. She felt like she was an independent today, right? And so it's that sort of stuff that you gotta, just what you said, you gotta look at the background and the resume of these people and see where they really stand on the things that are most important to you. Don't let yourself get seduced by the things that are sort of on the fringes of what you're interested in. Whether a book should have a red cover or a green cover, that's not the important thing.
Let me just interject. I believe, especially when you're voting and you're really getting to know a candidate,
Mm-hmm.
how important debates are, because that's when you can really get to the heart of the matter and kind of find out where they stand at.
You
know?
would think, but then if it's Donald Trump that's in the debate, that's not going to do you any good.
He gonna lie anyway.
He's going to lie. He's going to stomp all over you when you're trying to talk. He's going to walk over your conversation and whatnot, not let you talk, and so on. I don't understand. That's another issue. I know we got to take a break, but we won't talk much about this, but there is this standing thing that's going on right now tonight where CNN is going to hold, for all intents and purposes, a one-person debate with CNN's, talking heads and Donald Trump, and they're basically interviewing him on television.
That should be good. That'll make good TV.
Why are you giving this dude this kind of lift?
One quick question: Are they going to bring up the rape accusation?
They probably will.
A lot of times, you know how they censor, and he won't allow.
But you never know how they'll do that. They're going just the mere fact that you're going to give him an hour or two of FaceTime on national TV.
He's going to become more popular.
Exactly. Why would you do this? Why are you giving him this free, and highly desired space? Why are you doing that?
Right. Good press,
because
bad press.
At the end of the day, the media is in the game too. They're manipulating. They want this contest, between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They want to have this friction, going on.
Yeah.
They want the debt crisis, to be going on. They want the budget crisis to be going on, because that's what gets the views, that gets the people looking and whatnot, at their stations. And I think this is very malicious what these people are doing. But listen, we got to take a quick break because our sponsors are getting mad at Norm for denying you the ability to hear what the sponsors have to say. So just stick around. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo.
Medicaid y CHIP ofrecen cobertura médica gratuita o a bajo costo para niños y adolescentes. Las visitas al hospital, citas médicas, medicinas recetadas, vacunas y más están cubiertas. Esto da tranquilidad a los...
And his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norma Carter, who is our in-studio audience of one. And we're here with Willie H., who is our only real citizen of the 21st century. He really knows how to do this stuff. We're just hanging on, by our thread. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, my theme today was to talk about the fact that we have written laws, but somehow written law doesn't mean anything for a certain class of people in this country. When the law that they wrote provides for something that they don't want anymore, they just change the law. And if they don't change the law, they change how they interpret the law.
Yep.
Well, I don't think law should be interpreted that way, but that's the way the law has been interpreted, for the past 7,000 years.
But let me ask this, and this is where I got a problem with. I know that they just changed the law, but how should they be able to change the law when? Okay, I know they got control of the House, but we got control of the Senate. Now, with that being said, it shouldn't be that easy to just change the law.
Well, it's not easy to do at the federal level because the Democrats have control.
Statewide.
Right. The Democrats have control of the House of the Senate. Republicans have control of the House of Representatives.
Okay.
The problem with our system of government is that in the old days, you had people in each party who had different levels of conservative versus, progressivism. So you had progressive people in the Republican Party. So if you were doing something that was going to try to figure out a way to whittle down the budget and lower the amount of money that you want to spend, you would have progressive Republicans who would say, well, I want to help us whittle down the budget too, or at least whittle down the deficit, but I don't want you to hurt this veterans program. I don't want you to hurt this handicap program. I don't want you to hurt this mental health program. You used to have that.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore. The Republicans literally gave what they claimed was a budget plan, which said that I will increase the spending limit or the credit limit for the United States by $1.6 trillion on the condition that you basically cut 22% of all of the expenditures outside of defense across the country right now, across the board. Well, that dog just can't hunt. Yeah. But that's what they did. And 43 Republican senators signed off on this. You would need to get at least 9 of the Republican senators to agree to break a filibuster. We're going to talk about the filibuster, near the end of this program. But you would have to get 9 of the 49 Republican senators to agree to end a filibuster, right? If you couldn't get that done, then you couldn't get a debate on a bill being brought before the Senate, let alone be able to get a vote on that bill. So we've got a system of bottlenecks that have been set up, and people are using the process, the system, to create bottlenecks, and then using the bottlenecks to prevent government from being able to do what government should be able to do. And then they attack the government for not doing the thing that they're preventing the government from doing. So, for example, they keep telling you that we've got this flood of people that we expect on Wednesday, or Thursday rather, to come flooding across the border. It's Biden's fault. How can it be Biden's fault that people coming from Panama,
what is that called? Something 42. What is
Title 42.
Title 42.
But Title 42 was just a way to keep people from being able to cross the border and stay. Title 42 just meant that if a person could not prove that they were free of COVID-19 or coronavirus, if they couldn't prove that they were free of that, then that person couldn't stay in the United States. Well, if you've been walking for 3,000 miles, the likelihood that you have a current, immunization card, is slim and none, right? So that's keeping those people from being able to come across the border in the first place. My point is that you have no control over people trying to come across your border. They're fleeing their country. They're not fleeing you. They're fleeing their country. They come to you because they think that your country is a safe harbor. So they're going to continue to do that. So the problem is, how do you control that issue? How do you stop that from occurring? And we've talked about this, many times on this program. What you really got to do is you got to look at what are the reasons why people are leaving their country and coming to the southern border of the United States in the first place. Why are they doing that? Because if you don't do that, just saying that I got better tools to keep people from crossing the border and making them go sit in concentration camps, on the Mexican side of the border, that's not a good solution. You're just creating another problem that requires another set of solutions. To solve the problem, you have to keep people from wanting to come to the southern border of the United States in the first place. How do you do that? We've talked about that. Take your money, use your money to help Mexico develop areas of Mexico that need to be developed. Use your money to do that. Hire people from Panama and Ecuador and Central American states and so on. Hire them, that want to leave their countries. Hire them in that border region.
Excuse me, sir. What would that solution be? Would it be called the hair solution or the hair program?
It may be. Who knows?
We know what it is.
It'll be Grasshopper. It'll be like the Kung Fu movie and whatnot, right? But whatever the case, whoever gets the credit for it, my point is that you have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And the Republicans are basically stopping you from being able to solve the problem. What I'm saying is you're spending $15 to $16 billion a year to do what you're doing, and it doesn't work. If you divert 4 or 5 billion of that to do what I'm talking about, you would keep 2 or 3 or 4 or 500,000 of these people from trying to come across your southern border in the first place.
Yeah.
They would stay where they are or close to where they are.
Yeah.
That would just make sense.
And you would create revenue for them and revenue for yourself.
And revenue for Mexicans.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, everybody would wind up getting something out of the deal.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, it's American money, that $4 or $5 billion. It's American money for the $15 or $16 billion you're spending right now. That's American money too. Right? I'd rather spend 5 or 6 billion than spend 15 or 16 other billion.
A win-win.
Right? I mean, that makes sense to me. Yeah. So that's the way you'd want to approach it. So there's another issue that I wanted to get into. Your cousin, Ron DeSantis, and I know y'all don't like to take,
Well, who cousin is that?
Y'all don't like to take, family responsibility, for folks. But Ron DeSantis is your cousin, and Ron decided that, I'm going to run for president of the United States. But they have something called laws in Florida. Now, they don't have really good laws because in Florida, you can just change the laws any way you want all the time. They got the, critical race theory laws that prevent you from doing something that you're not doing in the first place. That's a real great law. A law that says that you can't do something that nobody is doing at all right now anyway. But that's what they call legislating in Florida. That's what I meant about the critical race theory.
Yeah.
They don't teach critical race theory in preschool through 12th grade. It's a law school program. It's a postgraduate program. Right? It's just not taught in the school system. So why are we even having this conversation, about that? In postgraduate programs, it's exploratory education in the first place. You're supposed to look at different theories of educational disciplines. That's what you're supposed to do. But in grammar school, you got a set curricula, and you stick with that curricula, right? Well, that's what they do.
Ron DeSantis says certain things that he doesn't want a whole lot of people to know about anyway.
Well, here's something he didn't want you to know about. In Florida, if you decide, if you already have a elected office and you decide you want to run for another office, let's say you're a state senator and you decide you want to run for governor. In Florida, you have to submit I forgot what it's like a resign order you have to submit that says that you want to run for governor. If I win the race, the governorship would start on, say, January 25th, of next year. I would have to submit a letter of resignation today that says that I will resign my office on the on the day before the first day I would start serving as the governor, even if I don't win the governor race. I would still have to resign with my end date being the first day of that the governorship of the next governorship. And so that puts a little restraint on people, because right now you could be a congressperson, you could run for president and still be a congressperson. If you don't win, you still have your job as a congressperson. So in Florida, apparently they didn't like that. They felt that they wanted you to either be all in, for your term to run, to do the office that you were elected to do, or if you're not, you have to give up that office as soon as the other office becomes available. Even if you don't win, you still have to give up that office.
Wow.
That's to create a certain discipline in people who want to run for elected office. Well, Ron DeSantis said, well, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to run for president and still be able to be governor if I don't win. Well, Ron DeSantis went to his state legislature and they changed the rules.
Wow.
They just rewrote the rules. This is what they wrote. They wrote that the rules that we have, they still exist. They're fine like they are, except if a person is running for vice president or president of the United States, the rules don't apply to those situations.
Why is that? Because that befit what he was trying to do?
Right, because he was running for, or he thinks he wants to run for president of the United States. So essentially he's saying that the rules that exist for everybody in Florida, now they only exist for people, they exist for everybody except somebody who's running for president or vice president of the United States. They just changed the rules. They changed the way the rules are interpreted.
That's how come I believe voting starts at the, well, you've already explained it, but at the state level, so that you can stop that kind of stuff in the state. That's how come we got so much stuff spread around, different things going on from state to state. It's kind of crazy. I think everything should be uniformed.
What you see here is wherever the Republicans have the muscle to be able to push something through, they don't vote based on individuals' perceptions of their values and principles and so on. They vote based on the herd. The herd says that our collective best political position is X, so we're all going to vote for X. None of us are going to vote for anything other than X. Everything is a herd mentality, amongst the. And I don't want to say that it doesn't happen amongst Democrats.
But you know what though? Now this is I think we've discussed it before. But it's almost like the Republicans do stick together on whatever it is, and the Democrats don't. And that's why things are like they are. That's how come Trump even has the opportunity to be able to run again.
Well, see, the thing is,
like
the Democrats have always, since the since the 1960s, with John F. Kennedy, the Democrats have operated what they refer to as a big tent party. So they have room. Remember now, you still had Southern Dixiecrats, in 1964, 68, 72. You had people that were the Strom Thurmond, Ku Klux Klan people that were in the Senate and so on. You had that going on in this country. But the Democrats, they made room for all of those different kinds of thought processes.
Yeah.
So they had very conservative people. They had progressive people. They had moderate people. They had, whatever. They had a lot of different kinds of folks. And so they would always try to find a strategy or a policy position that would meet the needs of virtually all of those different kinds of people.
Do you, just real quick, I just want to ask, do you believe that the Democrats try to operate within the confines of a little bit more integrity than the Republican Party would, and that's kind of why it goes this way?
Right. The Democrats try to operate from a populist, a people perspective. In other words, they're saying that you may not like everything that I like, but you like enough of the things that I like, and I like enough of the things that you like, that we should be able to find a middle ground that's a pretty good, big middle ground.
Sounds like Biden.
You know what I mean? That all of us can stand on.
Yeah.
And then we can go forward, on that middle ground. And we'll still fight over the little things that we still have issues with, amongst each other. That's the Democrats' way. Now, going back to this debt ceiling thing, McCarthy has it. This is Sarah Burrs. She wrote an article in Ross' story about how McCarthy could be kicked out of the speaker's chair if he gives in on this battle over the debt ceiling. Now, remember what McCarthy is asserting. He's saying that I'm not going to agree to put a measure before the House of Representatives that would increase the debt ceiling. I'm not going to do that unless you agree to a broad set of cuts in the budget, cuts that would come to around 22% of the discretionary part of the budget of the United States. That's what McCarthy is saying. Now, what Joe Biden is saying, and maybe you all would agree, that the debt ceiling has nothing to do with the budget. The debt ceiling is you having enough borrowing authority to pay for the things that you already have purchased, not to pay for things you want to purchase, but to pay for things that you already have purchased, that you just need more borrowing authority to cover, whatever that debt is. McCarthy is saying, no, I want to negotiate the budget with you before I'll agree with the debt ceiling increase. The problem here is we have allowed the budget process to degrade over the course of the past 35, 40 years. It used to be that the president issued a budget message generally in the first 2 weeks of February, and then in the March and April period, Congress would argue back and forth amongst themselves around what they want to see in the final budget. And then they would come up with a budget resolution signed off by both the House and the Senate. And then that would go to the president, and the president would either veto or accept whatever comes out of that process. That's the way it used to be. So by the time you got to May 1 of a year, you would have a budget in place that would cover the year that's going to begin October 1 through September 30th of the next year. We've allowed that to degrade over the course of the last, several decades, to the point that people have lost track of the fact that you're supposed to be doing the budget. The budget should be done right now. You should have the final budget in your hands right now.
Yeah.
So now the debt ceiling has become involved with the budgeting process when it shouldn't be involved with that at all. The debt ceiling is how much money you need to borrow in order for you to meet your cash flow needs today. The budget is just a 1 year, a period from October 1 of the current year to September 30th of the next year. It's the budget for that 1 year period. That should have been negotiated with the House and the Senate already, and that's what should be going on right now. So McCarthy is saying that I want to do the budget process. I want the budget to be done before I will do a debt ceiling increase. I guarantee you that this is what will occur. Even if Joe Biden were to give in and say, I'll agree with some cuts, in order to get the debt ceiling raised, I'm willing to do that, but still wouldn't have a budget done. Then he would have to come back and get a budget done, and the Republicans would hold him hostage again on getting a new budget done. They wouldn't agree to do a new budget. In other words, they're going to get two big bites at the apple rather than one.
Just want to ask real quick, what are the cuts that the GOP is really looking to try to go after, and what are the things that we're trying to really, really hold on to?
Well, remember that the things that are that are discretionary, that are not mandatory, things that are discretionary, things that you have some control over, you're not required to do. Defense is discretionary. Transportation is discretionary. Childcare is discretionary. Public school education is discretionary, and so on. So Veterans Affairs, discretionary. So all of these things and many more that I haven't mentioned yet, all of these things are in the discretionary part of the budget. Even if you cut all of those things out, you wouldn't have enough cuts to make up the size of cuts that the Republicans are saying that they want to see done. Not only do the Republicans want to see these massive cuts in these social and discretionary programs, which have to do with highway maintenance, bridge maintenance, that have to do with national defense, and so on. In addition to all of that, the Republicans are saying that they want an increase in the defense spending. So not only do they want to cut the discretionary part of the budget, they want to increase the defense spending part of the budget, which is also part of the discretionary, part of the budget, and so on. So they're proposing doing something that would probably take something like 8 to 10 million jobs would be lost, during this time period. It means that we talk about, tens of millions of people who would no longer have access to Medicaid type of care, that would no longer have access to home energy and heating and energy assistance, and so on, that would no longer have access to the federal funds that fund school lunch programs and breakfast programs at schools, and so on. Even your Veterans Administration offices, many of them would close. I think the air traffic controllers, I think there's something like 1,000, almost 1,200 air traffic control stations in the United States. They'd have to close something like 125 of those air traffic control stations in order to be able to make the budget work.
Yeah.
So just ask yourself
that's huge right there.
How would you feel if 10% of the air traffic control towers were to close?
Wow. Man, that's crazy.
Then you'd be in Albuquerque and they'd be calling you about air traffic coming to Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't think you want that deal, but the Republicans do want that deal, right? And so that's what's really in front of us right now. And so McCarthy's issue is he's trying to act like he's Mr. Tough Guy, but the reality is you have these Matthew Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greens and Paul Gosar, and these really rabid, type of people that are in this Republican caucus who just don't care about governance of the United States at all. They just don't care. Their position is that we want to be Charles in charge, and we want to do it this way, and either you do it or we're going to injure everybody in the country.
Hold everybody hostage.
And unfortunately, people here do that. They are willing to, there seems to be a lot of Americans who are willing to do that. So the last piece I wanted to hit on, I know we got about 2 minutes left, is the filibuster. Because they're saying that McCarthy, they need to get a debt ceiling passed through him, but that's not really true. Getting a debt ceiling passed in the House of Representatives is only one part of the problem. You'd still have to get that debt ceiling passed in the Senate. So what happens if in the Senate you can't get 9 of the Republican senators to agree to end debate on the bill to bring a debt ceiling bill to a vote on the floor of the Senate? What happens then? Now you got the Republicans in the Senate holding the country hostage. So right now you got the Republicans in the House holding the country hostage. Then you'll have the Republicans in the Senate holding the country hostage. This is just on the debt ceiling. Then if Biden goes along with all of that, you still got the budget that has to get done. And the budget process has to go through the House and then go through the Senate to come back to the president again.
It's like a revolving door.
So you're going to have 4 different points where the Republicans can say, no, I don't care what's in the best interest of people in the United States. I want my way this way, period.
And it's all held up.
Now, keep in mind that in December of 2017, the Republicans put forward as a favor to Donald Trump a tax reduction bill that reduced personal income taxes by about 11%, but it reduced corporate income taxes from 35% to, I believe it was 21%, essentially a 41% decrease in taxation for corporations.
And that's really huge.
That's humongous. Well, that was something in the area of $250 to $300 billion of revenue that was lost. If that revenue was still in our hands, and the revenue that we lost from the tax cut that was done for individuals, you'd have another $450 billion in revenue. You wouldn't have the deficit that we're talking about right now, and you'd be paying down on the debt. Keep in mind that Joe Biden's budget for the year that ends September 30th of this year, the 2023 budget year, includes $1.7 trillion in debt in debt reduction. So the Biden administration has already done $1.7 trillion in debt reduction for the year that ends September 30th of this year. In the budget proposal that Biden has made that begins October 1 of this year, he has put forward a budget that would knock off $3 trillion off of the deficits or debt over the course of the next 10 years.
Nice.
So the very thing that the Republicans are saying that they want done is already being done by the Biden administration, but they're not happy with that. They want more done so they can take credit for getting more done, even if the more that they do would destroy the economy of this country, because they don't care. See, for them, it's all about the politics. It's never about what's in the best interest of the American people as a whole. It's what's in the best interest of being able to gain or preserve power in this country, whether it's at the county level, the state level, or at the federal level. So listen, folks, there's a lot that's on the plate here, but we'll keep talking about this stuff. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. See you all then.